Going to be eating a shock dart, but he's able to makes it win anything. Sam, defend your team because they haven't won. Oh my God!
Strap yourselves in. It's another 1 hour episode.
Oh yeah.
Spike defused.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Press 4 to Defuse, your weekly spot for Valorant esports news and discussion. The sun is out, so the guns are out, and we're going to be chatting a little VCT, and mostly just VCT, because let's be honest, Paul, not that much has happened this week, actually, in the Valorant space. For once, we had a slow news week.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty tame, right? It feels like after like the one C9 move and then, you know, Masters and everything, like we're getting a little bit of like a calm before the storm, before things really pick up again for like playoffs and going into Masters too. I'm okay with a couple of weeks that are more on the chill end news-wise. The games were a little bit crazy this week, but at least the news was a little bit more chill.
We had some spicy news this week, some spicy games for sure. It does feel like, at least in terms of roster stuff, obviously there's not a lot of motivation for teams, especially in NA, to make moves right now, since there's not a whole lot to compete for. And if you're looking to pick up players, maybe you want to see if any of the VCT teams get knocked out and make some changes, and suddenly someone comes available you didn't think was going to be. There's a lot to say for that. But let's jump into our Run It Back segment presented by Temple University. We do have some things to talk about from the last week, some things to go over. The first thing is there was a follow-up on the Ask Valorant post from last weekend. We talked about that, obviously, in length, because it's really a major bummer that apparently a demo reviewer is not coming anytime soon. And the indication in that post was that it was no longer a priority for them and they weren't really working on it. Now, this apparently clarifies that they are working on it, but it's not a priority because it's taking a long time. Yeah. Frankly, this is a nothing burger of a clarification because it's just saying, it's still not coming anytime soon, but we think we want it.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's good to see that there's still a chance it might exist sometime. I wish it was already in, right? Considering the game's been out actually 2 years this month, right?
Yeah.
Which is wild to think about, but there's a couple of like little teasers in here too, right? Next map is close to ready. I'm interested to see what weirdness the next map will be, right? Every map in Valorant just has some weird thing to it. I'm I'm pretty excited for another map, honestly. It just because I like casting.
This one's
the
gonna
new
have
maps.
mortars that launch you between the sides of the map instead of a zip line.
That would actually be really fun.
It actually,
I mean,
you
could you
hop in the
I could
human
just
cannon and it shoots you to one of 3 random locations.
I could see the TikTok clips with people just spamming from air and getting random headshots
Yes.
already.
That's exactly what would happen.
But yeah, this is basically, like you said, kind of a nothing burger,
Mhm.
right? Just like hey, don't be as mad at us, please.
Yeah.
It might exist someday.
I am guessing that it's like, I mean, we talked about this last week. I think I said that this was my guess as to why it's not coming anytime soon, is that they didn't build it to be able to do that. They didn't build the game to be able to do that. And in order to put in a demo reviewer, you kind of have to rebuild the way matches work. And that's you don't want to do that if you're going to break your game.
don't know enough about coding to really say anything on that matter.
I know
right?
just enough about coding to confidently state an opinion that's probably wrong.
It just doesn't. It feels like, considering that like the observer is already in, right? I don't know. It doesn't feel like it should be that hard to just record the game state. But again, I know absolutely nothing about coding. That's me talking out my ass. So,
and the thing that's interesting is there's clearly some sort of match review system backend, right? Because they manual ban cheaters, as we're going to get to in a second,
exactly.
which means they have to be able to review games. So,
well, and they have a review process based on like things that have happened at like Champions, right? Where they have to go back and review like certain Cypher cams that were like maybe like not okay, right? Like there was that whole thing with whatever Brazil team it was at Champions where they had to like go back into the match and look at the camera that was used and how often it was used and how it impacted the match and yada yada yada.
Yeah, so something's got to be a massive impediment to putting that on the consumer side of things, but I'm not sure why. But suffice it to say, this is a nothing response, but it does say that at least they do want to at some point have a demo reviewer. We'll just see. That could be next week. That could be, it's not going to be next week. That could be next year. That could be next 5 years. Like it's a nothing response. We have no real information off of this. Moving on to our next little bit, next little thing. We had some fun clips this week. I think we should just roll the clips. Just roll the clips. Is the audio going out to stream? Because it's pretty hilarious. But it's just you're playing in a tournament and cheated detected. That happened like 2 or 3 times this session. 2 of them were legit, or one or 2 of them were legit. One of them, as it turned out, was not legit. It was in fact
that's just early pressure.
Manual ban where the guy clicked the wrong player. Boy. Good old gamer doc. Oopsie. Nothing like getting banned mid-tournament because someone had the wrong tab open. Let's go to that statement. Here it is. I have accidentally banned Uncaged Val. I was looking at a profile that had cheats while also investigating him. I banned the wrong person based on my findings on another person. I mixed up the tabs. This is completely my fault. I am terribly sorry for this and the confusion. Hey, maybe if one person has unilateral ban authority, review cases one at a time, dog. Do them one at a time. I know we all like to have too many tabs open. It's a sin that everybody participates in. Don't get me wrong. We've all been there. We've all had 37 tabs of Chrome open, then looked at it and been like, why is my processor running slow? But holy shit,
funny,
dude. If you're going to like radically
funny.
alter someone's reputation and ability to compete in this game, maybe do them one at a time.
That's just so funny to me, dude. I cannot like I feel for like this person, right? Because I can only imagine the stress and anxiety on both ends of this, right? Like, obviously it's worse for the player who got banned.
Yeah, it's a lot worse.
Cheating. It's a lot worse for them, undoubtedly. But also just thinking about like, being that person and hitting one wrong button and being like, oh, cool. I've made a horrible mistake that has ruined somebody else's day. Jeez.
Here's my question. Do you think he knew about it before he got tweeted at with this? Bro, I got banned mid-tournament. I'm not cheating. And then he was like, oh, I should go back and check. Oh, shit.
Honestly, probably not. It's one of those things where you probably didn't realize you hit the wrong button, right?
Dude.
I don't know for sure, but I know that if I made a mistake like that, I probably wouldn't realize until somebody called me out for it.
Yeah.
And that would also raise the stress level. I mean, this is just such an unfortunate oopsie.
Yeah. Really unfortunate oopsie. Really silly thing. So as much as there are legit cheater clips apparently, but there's also some very illegitimate ones. Also, I'm going to continue to say, as much as Riot talked about their kernel level anti-cheat and how they were gonna go to war with cheaters and all this, and you weren't gonna be able to cheat in their game, having someone manually review and ban people tells me that it's not that good.
Yeah, it's interesting too, right? I mean, I feel like compared to a lot of other free-to-play model games, Valorant's generally really good about cheaters a lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
Like
It's not like CS.
Cheaters are it's not like CS. It's not like, friggin' Apex is rampant
Apex
with them,
is awful,
right?
Yeah.
For a free-to-play model, it's like really good about cheaters too. It's just interesting to see that that's maybe a little bit more user input than we were led to believe based on, the Vanguard anti-cheat being forcibly installed on all our computers the second that we even think about playing Valorant.
Yeah, just give them kernel level access. That's what we need. I mean, look, it does seem to be working. This is just a hilarious series of whoopsies, but we'll move on.
Honestly, considering that Valorant's been out 2 years, I think this is one instance of this.
Yeah, it's forgivable.
In 2 years, probably like thousands, maybe tens of thousands of bans, right? I think that this is still a pretty okay rate, right? Of accident. Like your error percentage is under 1% still. So I think we're doing okay.
Yeah, doing all right. Moving on, we got a leak from Valor Leaks that apparently a 1v1 game mode might be being worked on based on this menu that we've seen. This screenshot of a menu. Now, obviously tough to judge the authenticity, but apparently it's either BO10 or BO13. This is all coming from Valor Leaks, which has been pretty reliable. But it's interesting. It'd be cool. 1v1 me.
Yeah, right? Like literally just 1v1 me.
We should
just like
if a 1v1 system comes out, we should do a 1v1 tournament with the Press 4. You, me, Sam, and Cody. See who's the best Valorant player.
I can't wait to get my ass beaten.
I'll have to actually fire back up Valorant and see if I can still shoot.
You have to install it again.
In a minute.
No, I just am confused as to what this would look like.
Yeah.
And if this is a real leak, which I mean, generally speaking, Valor Leaks has been pretty good about that kind of thing.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
I'm just confused why this is a priority. Right? Like we were talking just earlier about replay mode and all these different. I mean, presumably it's different parts of the dev team, but I just feel like I've never looked at Valorant and gone, you know what this game needs? It needs an official gameplay mode to where when I'm mad at someone after the match, I can add them and angrily 1v1 and still lose to them.
Hell yeah, dude.
That's what's missing from Valorant.
You got to be able to 1v1. You got to be able to 1v1.
But you can just do that.
Yeah, but
right?
Yeah,
you can just
but the maps aren't built for
game.
it, and I bet these will have actual maps that are built for 1v1, like CSA map style. My guess is it's not hard to implement. It shouldn't be that hard to implement. You just basically need a new map and a new, parameters for your game mode. So I would understand.
Also, if that's what the new map is, I'm going to be incredibly disappointed. If the new map that
is just the 1v1 map.
It's just the 1v1. I would be upset by that.
I don't think that's likely.
I don't think that's what it is.
I could see them introducing a new map that has a section on it that then gets used for the 1v1 mode.
Yeah. Well, I imagine that'll kind of be like, they'll probably section off the maps that are currently in the game, right? Like you can take sections from different maps, like make it one site or whatever, and implement it to the 1v1 as is. I just have I can't say PTSD, but I have unresolved issues from Overwatch content droughts for 2 years, where all they would do is add deathmatch maps, and I'm like, no, please give us real things,
real things, please. I wouldn't worry about that. Valorant likes their big splash maps. They like to radically alter the meta. They like to try and figure out an 8-map veto. So I don't think that's going to be the issue. I'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Moving on. A little bit of team news. Footballists have released their FE team. I wish we had Sam on the show this week to talk about this, because she was pretty excited about this team going into EMEA Game Changer. Was talking about them as a potential upset squad. Obviously, they placed pretty well, but they seem to be free agents. So I'm curious about whether that indicates they might be getting picked up by someone else or whether they're just not in the budget.
Yeah, it seems like a weird time to be dropping your female team too, right? It feels like Game Changers just gets bigger and bigger every single time that there's an event. Across EMEA and NA. So it feels weird to just nuke your roster like this at this point. I mean, unless Footballist is really hurting money wise, I can't imagine that this squad was costing them an arm and a leg budget wise. So it feels like a really strange anti-investment.
Maybe a contract dispute. Maybe they just didn't get the sponsorship they were hoping for off of this team. I don't know. But they do have some legit sponsors. I mean, like Red Bull, that kind of thing. So
yeah, right. And like they had like a pretty legit squad too that did like decently well. Wasn't
Top four?
competing, for exactly, right? Top 4. Maybe not contending for the crown, but just feels brutal.
Yeah. It's an interesting one to see. It's interesting timing as well. Moving on down. Run it back. Our last one here, or at least until we get to the rumors. Mix is coming on to the C9 Valorant team, which is a really interesting addition. You probably don't know anything about Mix. He's a guy who comes over from CS. He was part of the C9 CS team, the Colossus that they tried to build. Not very successful there. He was part of United back in the day. He's coached a few different teams, either as an assistant coach or a full head coach. He's been around a while. Solid coaching. I've heard a lot of good things from his former players. He's worked with Vanity before, I believe. Actually, has he? Was he on that? Yeah, in United, I think he was on when Vanity was on. So there's some familiarity there. He's well plugged into the scene. I think he's worked with James IRL before on that previous Cloud9 roster as well. So there's a lot of familiarity. And here's the other hot deed. He was trialing at one point to be head coach of Cloud9 White. So instead of being head coach of Cloud9 White, because they're still looking for a coach, I think.
Interesting.
He comes in to be the assistant coach for the main roster,
I'm pretty sure
where they need a built-up roster of coaches because they lost Autumn, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. I mean, interesting too that they add him on as an assistant coach instead of head coach to replace Autumn. So I'm intrigued to see the direction. Like you said, I'm not super familiar with Mix at this time, and they still had James IRL too. So I guess they don't really need to like completely change the way that C9 is running. So this just feels like an extra voice kind of on the back end to maybe fill a void that Autumn was leaving.
I also think that Mix, as an individual, thrives more on the analytical side of things, like putting together strats, putting together that kind of thing, than necessarily maybe being like the pump-up guy behind them. I think that's more of a natural role for James IRL. Not to say James isn't good at the analytical side. He's apparently a beast when it comes to note-taking and prep. But you know what I'm getting at.
For sure.
But yeah, I don't believe C9 White has a coach just yet.
They got Moonchopper, actually.
But he's an analyst, kind of.
Yeah, it looks like they have a manager and an analyst. I couldn't find a coach. They used to have a coach, but I know Dream. That they dropped Dream. So I don't think that they have like a full
which is a shame for us because Dream was responsible for like 70% of the shit talk in the Val scene. at least in the Game Changers Val scene. So we don't have spicy tweets to talk about anymore.
That's Dream for you. Yeah.
Still, I mean, it should bolster the coaching staff. We were wondering how Cloud9 was going to approach filling back out that coaching staff. And Mix is a good addition for them. Moving on, we're into the rumors section. This was an interesting piece of news coming from our boy George Geedes, friend of the show. Liquid trial Area to replace Sliggy as the head coach. Sliggy stepped down.
Yeah, this is your favorite thing, right?
We had that rumor that maybe they'd approached Hunden. That seemed to be debunked, or at least Hunden certainly denied it. But Area coming in. Area is a French CS player who hasn't played competitively since like 2014, 2013. He was VAC banned, which means he was banned for cheating. He denies that it was actually for cheating or that he ever cheated. But here's the thing. Here's some details. There's the HLTV article from back in 2015 about his ban. He had one of the highest headshot percentages of any competitive player. He had crazy clips. He was compared to Scream in playstyle, who was the headshot machine. And then he mysteriously stepped down, chose not to join the biggest French team at the time, LDLC, because that would have involved him playing on LAN and in arenas, and just sort of disappeared from the scene before copping this back ban. Let me tell you something, folks. If it looks like a duck, and it quacks like a duck, it's usually a duck. If it has improbable statistics, it shoots only headshots, it has crazy clips, and then it mysteriously disappears before LAN, and then gets VAC banned, it's a cheater. So it's weird to me that Liquid has decided to replace their highly respected coach Sliggy by going back into the past to find an absolute relic of a CS cheater from the French scene and be like, yeah, this guy was never known for his tactics, but let's pop him in here. I mean, he probably has some familiarity with Scream, right? I don't know whether they actually played together. I think they did, but I'm not sure of that. Certainly they played in the scene, and the French scene was, you know, everybody knew everybody back then, I believe. But what? Why?
Yeah, it definitely feels weird, right? I guess like there are a few caveats to this. I suppose it was a decade ago. He's not coming in as a player, but it still just feels like a weird move.
Man's never owned it.
Liquid.
He's never admitted to it. He's never owned it. He's never talked about his past.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You got to have an admission or an apology to rehabilitate.
That is absolutely very true. And even just beyond like he was almost definitely a cheater thing. Why not get someone endemic to Valorant? Why not get someone who has like some experience, right? Actually running Valorant teams. There are definitely coaches on the market right now that I feel would just make a lot more sense.
I mean, even if you're not going to get someone endemic to Valorant, get someone who's coached before or knows things about coaching.
Like, exactly. Like, if you're going to get someone from CS, get a CS coach. If you're going to get a coach and it's somebody who hasn't played in a while, maybe get somebody who's been coaching Valorant. This guy hasn't even played competitively in 10. It just feels so weird.
It's a very weird decision. I would be really curious to see if it comes to fruition, and really curious to see how Liquid do, because they're already a team that feels like they're kind of on the ropes. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. It's distinctly a weird one, and it just goes further into the like Sliggy said he was stepping down because of differences in vision, right? Where it's like, what the hell is going on behind the scenes of this team?
Now you really
then we had
really
that
just wonder.
We had that Yampy stuff where he was talking about going back to CS, and then he came out and denied that he was going to go back to CS. He was super happy about like it's got to be weird behind the scenes in this Liquid squad. I am so curious if we'll ever get like an inside look. Maybe Sliggy will talk about it at some point. I would love to know what the hell's going on in this team. But anyway, we'll move on. Time to talk about VCT NA, specifically VCT NA Challengers 2 Week 3, because we love our extended titles here in Valorant. Let's talk about it. Oh boy, the Guard gotta win 2-0 over TSM. The Guard are on the board. They gotta win out from here, but they're not going winless in this one. They pull out of the nosedive, and how do they do it, Paul? How do they do it? Because they roll back the clock. They say, who cares about your comps? Who cares about the meta? We're not going to play the meta. We're going to play what works for us, though. And it works again.
Honestly, though, right? Like that is actually how it worked for the Guard. They just put Saya back on Jet.
Yeah.
They put Saya back on Jet, and that was the fix. It's crazy. It's crazy how when you do the things that work and you don't mess it up, it kind of works.
It wasn't just that.
It kind of works.
It was also they went back to full Killjoy on both maps. They went back to Astra being integrated, right? Valen on the smokes on the Astra and the Viper. They put people back in more settled roles. They were trying to adapt, and it just was not working for them. And they made some maybe counterintuitive plays purely on the meta, but it worked out for them.
And I think this is something that's really cool about the current state of Valorant that we're in, is that it's not like, like 6 months ago when it was, full double controller, Astra Viper kind of meta, right? Where it was like okay, you're playing the meta on every map, and if you're playing anything else, you're probably inting, right? Like you can try some niche strategies sometimes, but your Yoru bind comps are not gonna really do much. Like that, like now we have like, it feels like a very healthy ecosystem of everybody has their different comps, everybody has their different agents, everybody has their different strategies, and we've been in this like patch for like 3 months now.
Yeah.
So to like not see it have settled into this is the one meta on these different maps, and if you don't play it, you lose. For to still have this kind of variety where it's actually better to just say, screw what everybody else is playing. We're going to play what works for our players, for our style, for our team, and actually get success on that. Not just for the guard, but you look at like FaZe, right? Who rolled out with the Neon Baby Bay this week and absolutely dumpstered Cloud9, right? Like it's such a cool, healthy time for a Valorant. I love watching such a diverse meta.
I mean, you look at like Haven in particular. Literally between their two comps, there was only one agent overlap, right? They both had a breach. Jonah P played breach and Rossi played breach. Yeah. Otherwise, you saw
it was a close game.
9 agents represented in that Haven game, which is badonkers.
It's so cool. And yet Phoenix still doesn't get any play.
Yeah, Phoenix sucks.
Fix Phoenix. Please, Riot. Please fix Phoenix.
You
I
can't
need my boy.
Here should be the rule. You can't feature Phoenix in another one of your damn cinematic trailers until he's viable. That's the rule, because they love to include him because he's a cool character. So they include him in all the promotional materials, but no one plays the damn guy.
I need my hot boy to be viable again.
Yeah, he's hot in 2 cents is the word.
Exactly.
I did catch MCE talking on Valoranting yesterday about some of these changes as well, talking about the Killjoy emphasis, which is just that Killjoy is such an information agent, right? And information is so valuable to the guard right now. They're an information-heavy team. And
I got a hot take.
Okay.
Chamber is overrated as hell right now.
Okay.
It shocks me that so many teams are still sticking to solely Chamber, right? I think there are definitely good maps for Chamber, but since like the nerf down to just having one trademark, I think that Chamber is a lot more difficult to execute properly, because you don't just get to like throw your trademarks up and forget about 2 lanes of the map and stack heavily in one area. Now your Chamber players on their own a lot of the time. They actually have to be performing very consistently in 1v3s in a lot of these maps. I think like Icebox B Long in particular, that's a place where a lot of Chambers like to set up. You'll throw because you have to throw the trademark in kitchen most rounds, right? Like that's just something you have to do most rounds as a defensive Chamber on Icebox. And then you're getting 1v3'd over in B Long a lot of the time. So if your Chamber's not performing, if they're not hitting heads, if they're not isolating like individual gunfights, Chamber's just not worth running at this point. Not to say that he's completely useless as an agent. He's still obviously really good. But I think that there is room to incorporate picks like Killjoy and Cypher into more maps, and I like seeing that the guard are willing to do that now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is super cool from a diversity and complexity perspective of agent picks, where you actually do get a little bit of extra things. I like Cub's suggestion of his fireball should one-shot incinerate people if it makes direct contact. I agree. Just give him the golden gun. Just give him complete melt you fireballs.
Watching a Phoenix run around the map with the hot hands out? Just
here's Phoenix Flash should insta kill if it hits a player in the head. Because if you think about it, it's a little sun he sets off to make a supernova and blind people. Yeah, I mean that should just melt them immediately.
Bro,
right?
just turn Phoenix into a melee agent.
We need realism in our Valorant. We need realism here. Every gun should be a one-shot kill. Just full swap mode from Halo. Bring it back.
There we go.
Roll it back.
Perfect. Jesus.
All right, another huge, I think, upset, although I actually think I predicted it last week. 100 Thieves. Take it over XSET.
Yeah,
I think I did predict that, and I like it.
This is a weird game too.
Yeah,
right?
Talk to me about it.
Because I think it proves to me a hunch I've had about 100 Thieves, and I think I brought it up a couple of times. I think I brought it up like last week, where 100 Thieves look like one of the best teams in Valorant when they're prepared strategies and ideas about how they go into the game are correct, right? When they have a good read on how the enemy team is going to play the maps that they're going into, 100 Thieves dismantle their opponent entirely. right? It really just proves to me that like the infrastructure that was added to this squad with, you know, like DDK, Sean Garris, and Mike, all on the back end is working very well. And they are seamlessly communicating their ideas and their notions of what, like, how the game should be played to these players, who a lot of whom are like on the younger end, on the less experienced end. So it is really cool to see that. 100 Thieves came into this with like a lot of really interesting strategies. Like I think back to the very first pistol on Breeze, where they had like a 3-player push up halls that just completely ruined what XSET wanted to do.
Yeah.
There's some really cool stuff happening in the 100 Thieves camp right now. I'm just like that very first game of stage 2 has still just like made me not the first game. The TSM game made me just like a little bit nervous, right? Because last week they got rolled by TSM. First week they rolled the guard. This week they rolled XSET, right? If it's very lopsided games for 100 Thieves thus far.
Well, it reminds me of something that you said last week when you were talking about XSET, right? Which you said that XSET is relatively predictable, where like there's a certain amount of the things that they like to do and they do them incredibly well.
Exactly.
And so if you know what those things are and you're a team that heavily leans towards anti-stratting, that's a vulnerability for XSET. It certainly is. And I mean, I think you saw it this week where XSET really did get stumped. Let's talk about Ghost NRG. The question comes in from Big Wardon, and I did want to talk about this. Yeah. NRG, a little bit of meta shifting here, perhaps. Certainly trying to challenge it with light armor buys. What did you make of that, Paul?
Jury's still out. But early impressions are, I understand the thought process, right? Because it's playing Moneyball in the game, right? That's essentially what it is. It's weighing an extra like 600 to an extra like 3,000 credits every round versus like the percentage wins that you will get with light armor versus like that extra 3,000 credits, right? Are you getting more wins and getting more gun rounds, basically, right? Because you're going to win less times with light armor. But are the amount of extra gun rounds, the extra economy, does that pad your economy enough to where percentage-wise you're still coming out on top? Yeah. Somebody in the NRG crew has done what they think is the math, and they believe that they have the math, right? Whether or not that's actually true, I think we need a much larger sample size than this one game. It was pretty one-sided, but honestly, I don't attribute that to the NRG buying light armor a lot of the time. I think heavy armor, they still lose a lot of those rounds. Yeah. It's definitely odd. It is odd that NRG looked at their game and said, this is the thing we need to fix. Let's do that. Versus just focusing more on playing like traditional Valorant and I feel like that is a weird direction, but I would be excited to see it succeed.
They also tried some funky comps, right? I mean, you've got Fade and Yoru in on Haven. Obviously, let's just get this out of the way. Didn't work. They got shit on 13-6, 13-5. The scoreline is not good at the end of the day, but they're clearly trying to do some weird stuff. And I personally do vibe with that. Much more traditional composition on Breeze, but not very successful either. It's an interesting one. Now, Ace of Rainbows is correct. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I want to address the Phantom thing in the chat really quick.
Okay.
Because it is mostly like people do mathematic, like, the math is better against Vandals, certainly. But the math against Phantoms is still not bad. Like everybody points out like the one-tap headshot, like you're going to feel bad if you get one-tap headshot at range by a Phantom, so-and-so. But, across hundreds of gunfights in a match, Phantom like one-tap headshots at range don't account for that many gunfights. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there are very few gunfights where you get shot in the head instantly by a Phantom and you still win the fight anyways. Like that happens every once in a while, but it is not the most crucial thing. And I doubt few individual players are going to be comfortable enough to alter their own like game style. Like if you're a Vandal player, you're a Vandal player, right? It doesn't matter if mathematically you would get a 2% advantage by rocking a Phantom versus NRG, right? If you want to shoot guys with the Vandal, that's just what you're going to want to do, especially at the high levels, right?
Yeah.
Where these players are often very sunk into their own play styles.
But still, I mean, the body shotting is just going to be much more. It's just an interesting one. It's a very interesting one. Well,
yeah, for sure.
Any other thoughts about Ghost NRG? Ghost is playing really well. They're in a great position in this group, aren't they? They're actually
Ghost. Yeah, I mean, at this rate, they should. They very could be qualified.
I think they're top seed right now. They've got the best round differential.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's map differential, right? That's the priority in their 4-3 as opposed to 4-2. That's dumb. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, Ghost do have some hard matches coming up too, right?
Yeah.
Like rounding out their schedule is TSM, who, well, I was gonna say has been looking really good, but I guess after this guard week, I have to question that a little bit more. But then they also play 100 Thieves. Last week they play 100 Thieves too, so like there's 4 weeks of footage on Ghost, so that's definitely gonna be a hard match for Ghost. But Ghost have been looking really good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, freaking Nismo, dude, he had an insane week. Nismo went 50
I love the
and
Nismo
21
memes. I love
across
the Nismo
2 maps, dude. Holy smokes.
The Nismo memes about everyone's like, we're going to shave our heads. We're opening restaurants. We're adopting children now. Like, I love the Nismo memes.
It's great, dude.
They tickle my fancy. I just want to say as well, while we're on the subject, because I don't think we're going to talk about another Group A game. Group A is wide open, dude. Everyone's either 2-1 or 1-2. Like,
yeah,
it's wide ass open. That's really exciting. Crazy. It was looking like Xset were going to be world beaters. They're mortal now. It was looking like, Guard might just be getting blown out. They've got to win now. It's wide ass open.
I definitely don't envy whoever in like the tournament admin side has to do the tiebreaker rules. Because there are going to be tiebreakers in this group. I think actually, like mathematically, I don't think we can avoid tiebreakers at this point.
Yeah, dude. It's wild.
It's crazy.
I'm so into it. Let's talk about the Group B games, though. We've got LG versus EG. EG win 2-0. They're the better Gs. They get to keep the G. LG will forever be known as L now because they're going to have to hold that L.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's what they took this week, right? So,
I mean, holy crap, though. LG were looking phenomenal. This EG team is exciting, dude. The Geniuses are exciting.
It's definitely a coalition of 2 things for me, right? Because I feel like EG had like a really good week.
Okay.
Which I love to see. You know, we talk. It feels like every week we lean a little bit more into like the EG fan club on this show, right? Like between like Boostio and Boostio Mom being like supporters of the show, and then oh my word, Calm added to that team, right? This week it was the Jogamo extravaganza, man. He rolled him.
He did.
He went 26 and 15 on the first map, dude.
386 ACS across the series.
And it wasn't just like Jogamo popping off either, which was really cool to watch strategically. There's like one like individual round where I noticed the pace that Jogamo sets in terms of taking space for EG is really impressive. There are a lot of rounds where that's boosted by like the Owl Drone, and against LG were a team, or at least this week, were a team where they just didn't want to contest the drone because they knew Jogamo would be right behind it. But that just gave Jogamo so much space. And even when LG started contesting it, like the way that Jogamo just struts onto a site and like uses like cloud bursts very effectively to just take space is really impressive to me. And it gives them a lot of advantageous gunfights because a lot of the time when those smokes dissipate, there's 4 players suddenly against whatever one LG defender is behind the smoke, and Jogamo can easily overwhelm that one defender. It's a really cool way that EG utilized their entry. And it was super impressive to me. I'm loving the way this EG squad is finally coming together.
Just going to throw some numbers out here from Jogamo's game. 100 more ADR over the series than anybody else in the server. +7
Jesus.
first kill, first death. Only 4 first deaths, 11 first kills. across 2 maps.
He takes space.
That's insane. Plus 22
That's what you want from your entry, man.
On the KD. Plus 22 on the KD is more than everybody else on his team. No, that can't be right. Yeah, it is right. Holy crap.
It's more. Yeah, it's more.
It's
he
more
went more
differential.
positive.
Yeah. He had a better differential than everybody else on his team.
As an entry player.
Absolutely.
So he's going in
insane.
first. He's taking 15 first gunfights and not dying the majority of the time, right? Like it is. It's really cool how EG are putting this together right now.
It's broken.
And I do want to say, this was a very uncharacteristic week for Luminosity.
Yeah.
I hate this talking point. I hate to bring it up. So you know that by bringing it up, that it was really evident this week. LG were just on the whiff train, dude. They could not hit the broadside of a barn in a lot of their gunfights, and I hate bringing stuff like that up because it feels like such forehead analysis, right? Like, oh well, LG lost because they couldn't hit them, they couldn't win gunfights. But like, watching like that first map of Icebox, like defensively, LG started on the defense.
Yeah,
they bought 3 operators for B-Dog. He got 0 op kills. 0.
Sometimes you just don't shoot, man. It does happen. It does happen.
It looked pretty rough. And to be playing a Reyna comp and for your players to be whiffing, that's some extra feels bad, man. Because you need that Reyna to be popping off. And I mean, I don't think that like they played the Reyna comp terribly, but it definitely wasn't enough.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. Moving on though. Moving on. Holy shit, FaZe. Holy shit! I mean, we could talk about Sen Optic, but obviously there's
Sentinels had 2 subs. It's not worth talking about that game.
It, but FaZe 2-0 Cloud9. We did not have any optimism for FaZe. Where'd this come from, Paul?
It feels like a prophecy has been realized. FaZe has put Baby Bay on the neon, and the second age of Smeeg has arrived.
The ultimate Smeeg.
It is, and it's not just like, the really cool thing is it's not the like when when Smeeg initiated, right, and it was just Baby Bay taking an Odin in with Jet and just flying into the enemy team all alone, right? Like that's what Smeeg looked like originally. This is like actually really well coordinated, and they build their entire comps around making Baby Bay succeed now, right? Like they've kind of stolen the Optic comp for Fracture, where it's the double flashes with I think the breach and the KO, if I remember correctly off the top of my head.
On Fracture, they're running breach and KO. Yes.
It's the breach and the KO. And then they make sure that Baby Bay always has either breach or KO with him. Generally, it's Flya.
Yeah.
Who, we were questioning this move, right? Bringing Flya onto the roster after just 1 week. It certainly looks like it's paying off now.
Yeah.
The way that Flya was just in lockstep with Baby Bay, 100% of this match. Always there, always making sure Baby Bay had advantageous gunfights, giving Baby Bay the tools to retreat once he had gotten a lot of work done. That was it. I would almost not be surprised if we never see FaZe play this well again, just because this week was so impressive.
Okay, high watermark, but you like the way it was working, right? Basically, pocket flash for Baby Bay.
Yeah,
set things up. It's going to be really interesting to see.
And I was talking last week how I didn't feel enough teams were incorporating Neon.
Yeah.
Right? Optic has been rolling everybody on Neon, and nobody else has put up like really good, consistent Neon performances. A couple other teams have like tried to run Neon a couple of times, and it's had some varied success depending on who was running it. But I think FaZe is gonna run Neon almost like all the time now. Like there's no reason not to with how well they played.
Well, we'll have to see if that keeps up. It certainly does seem to be the indicator. This puts Cloud9 in a really awkward territory, right? Let's talk about this group. Obviously, Optic sitting at the top 3-0. They absolutely spanked Sentinels. Sentinels had 2 stand-ins, playing with Raucus and playing with
I mean, just unlucky for Sentinels.
Danny, new stand-in.
Danny.
Unlucky.
Wait, is that the Danny I think it is? Oh, it is. Oh, hey. That's collegiate Danny.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Who's
like
collegiate
90%
Danny?
sure. Yeah. Okay. Danny was a player on Carleton Ravens. He also played a bit pro. I think he was on Time In. Once upon a time. I actually think Danny's a really good player.
His most recent team.
Time
In. Yeah.
He was on a really good collegiate roster. Carleton Ravens. They're like the best team in all of Canada, or they were before they kind of imploded.
Okay.
Danny's one of the best Sova players in existence, in my opinion, but he didn't play Sova in this match. He played controller. So, only so much you can do there.
Yeah. I mean, it was rough. They got spanked. It's the expectation.
Yeah, and it's a last minute thing, right? Like,
it would have been nice to see the full Sentinels against Optic, because I still think that would have been Optic's game, but it would have been a much more interesting one. But as
we would have had actual
things to talk
about.
It
just feels like we just put Sentinels in a time bubble for a week, right?
Yeah.
There's still a lot of concerns about Sentinels that I have. But you can't fault them for this week.
Well, talking about Optic, right? They're locked into playoffs, I think. They're really well set up for the 1 seed. They can't be eliminated from playoffs. They are in the top 4 guaranteed. Sentinels need to win their last 2 to even have a chance, and even then that's pretty rough. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to, especially since their map differential right now is 1-6.
Yeah, Sentinels have only won a single map.
Yeah, they have the worst map differential of everyone.
Won one map.
They are having the worst VCT of everyone.
I'm gonna be honest. If Sentinels comes out next week and gets clapped by FaZe, this is the worst I've ever felt about Sentinels.
Yeah,
by a lot, right? By a lot. And I think it's actually kind of likely that they get clapped by FaZe now. With how FaZe played this week, before I would have been like, oh, this is a really weird and interesting game. But now it's like Sentinels have 1 week to get their shit together.
Yeah, I mean, this week is such an aberration. Without TenZ, without Sick, right? You were always screwed.
Yeah, for sure.
But it'll be interesting to see if maybe they can rally. Maybe they can get something back from that. But let's talk about the standings, because the standings are really interesting heading into this.
So weird.
Group A is wide-ass open, which is super cool. It's really anyone could take it, and anyone could take any seed spot as well. There's teams that are more favored, but not really. Then over in Group B, Optic is a sure thing, but otherwise, I mean, EG look good, LG look good, C9, I don't know. Obviously, they've had to deal with some stuff, and then FaZe suddenly come out with a win. Those last 3 spots feel very open as well. EG and LG are obviously the favorites, being the 2-1
It's
teams,
so impossible to make any predictions,
dude.
Going into next week. What do we do? What do we do?
I don't know, man. Well, let's look at the matches.
How many weird 4 out of 6 had a somewhat unexpected result. Yeah. Right? 4 out of 6 games this last week were spicy. The team you would consider the underdog winning.
Very spicy. Oh, look at that. We're getting Overwatch ads. What's that game? Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about the matchups for next week. First off, banger. The Guard versus Xset. Xset, who just got figured out by 100 Thieves, going to have to be adjusting. The Guard, who've gone back to the drawing board with the old comps. How are you feeling about that one? How are you feeling, man? How are you feeling?
Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's think about this. Yeah. Right? So Guard are back to their old comps.
Yep, seem to be.
Xset run their typical bread and butter.
Yep.
It is theoretically going to be a game of who performs on comfort better. Right? Man, I feel like this really comes down to what maps we end up on. I feel like if we end up on maps like Bind or Split somehow, the Guard are going to be in some trouble. My thing about Xset is I still think they perform way better when Zekin is on Raze, right? Zekin's Jet isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but his Raze is God tier. I think if Guard can get maps that Raze isn't as strong on, then you have a really good chance against Xset specifically. Like, just force jet maps, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't want Saya to have to play the Raze, evidently, right? Because, like,
No,
you know,
his Raze
earlier,
is not
like,
nearly as good as his jet. That's by their own admission.
like, you know, it really does feel like a Saya versus Zekin and to an extent Cryocells, right? It's in the entries and it's in the Sentinels. Like net pivoting away from, you know, with guard pivoting away from the chamber and toward like net using Killjoy more. Potentially Cypher more as well, depending on what maps they go to. I don't know.
Haven't seen a lot of Cypher lately, have we? It's been a long time.
I think Cypher's still really good on Breeze, though. So if we end up on Breeze, I think Cypher is. I mean, you're not going to run Killjoy on Breeze. So then guard have like the choice: do they want to try and pivot back to chamber with net, or do they want to try and incorporate another like more information heavy Sentinel, right? It's a really interesting matchup, and it's volatile, dude. Whoever has a good day is gonna have a great day.
I'm just saying, we're talking about old comps, we're talking about comfort here. Last time these two teams met up in Challenger, 2-1 for the guard. I'm taking guard all day, baby. But I think it's gonna be a spicy one.
I think it's gonna be really close.
The second game from that day, EG Optic. Do you believe in EG that far?
I don't know if I believe in EG that far. Man, it's rough. It's rough. I feel like the last 2 weeks, I haven't believed in EG that far, and they have just shellacked their opponent. But it's Optic, dude. I mean, just the thing is, I feel like this is one of the few things where EG can get like pound for pound outclassed in a lot of different roles.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like EG still has a long way to go as a roster, whereas Optic are kind of like fully realized. So especially with how good Optic have been with like prep recently, I think it's going to be a very difficult game for Evil Geniuses. I definitely think they can win a map though.
Yeah, I think Optic should probably take this. The head says Optic, the heart says EG. But yeah, I think Optic probably do take this. But should be a banger. Should be a banger as well. And it's a really good test to see how far EG can go. TSM Ghost. This one feels a little more
It's hard not to go Ghost, man.
Yeah,
it's hard not to go Ghost at this point. They just look so good.
Ghost have been.
And I've actually been surprisingly liking TSM recently.
Yeah,
but
they're
Ghost
winning you over.
So good.
They're your like you want to hate them, but you kind of like
them. I don't want to like TSM because it's TSM. But I think there's room for that to be an interesting series, but I'm giving it to Ghost.
Yeah. All right. I'll take Ghost as well there. Sentinels phase. Sentinels going to pull out of their nosedive.
Look, one of two things is going to happen here, right?
We're going slow-mo.
Either Sentinels is going to come back for a week, or FaZe is going to fall off after 1 week. It could coin flip. Could go either way.
I'm taking FaZe. I do think it's going to be a very coin flip matchup because I think there's going to be a lot of, fighting. And Sentinels theoretically should have the edge if it comes down to firepower, but I think their confidence has to be weird right now, right? I think the confidence has to be weird, and I think that is a team where if they get in their heads, I'm not sure what it's going to look like. So I'm going to take FaZe. NRG
FaZe's is going to be soaring.
NRG 100 Thieves. Is that going to be a banger game? We're going to see no armor buys. We're going to see shorty comps. What's NRG going to break out this week?
Man, I like NRG, but I cannot take them over 100 Thieves right now, dude. Like 100 Thieves, especially with how much footage there is, right? I will say the one bright spot for NRG is if they go back to more standard stuff, there won't be as much footage on them, right? So maybe 100 Thieves, their prep doesn't quite work out.
That's what I'm going to say.
Or maybe NRG pull out something weird and it actually works this time, right? Because 100 Thieves couldn't quite prep for it, but I'm still taking 100 Thieves with some degree of confidence.
I'm going to NRG. I think last week their firepower base obviously didn't have a lot of success. Somm and Tex were like bottom of the board in some of their matchups, which is just not the way you want life to be working.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that they're trying new things and integrating new strategy means it's going to be tough for 100 Thieves to predict about this one. But I think that should be a banger.
I think it's fair.
C9 LG. Confidence check on C9, I think, because LG still do look good, even if this last week was not good.
I think this last week was an oopsie for LG. I'm willing to write it off as one bad week just based on like the way in which they looked bad, which was honestly just missing a lot of their gunfights. Whereas C9, the way in which they look bad is they are still feeling kind of lost to me. There are a lot of rounds where it looks, with the eye test, admittedly, right, speculating because I'm not in their comm structure, it looks like they're having comm issues. They're stepping on each other's toes a lot of the time with utility, or they're not quite spacing properly to trade. So I definitely think LG still has better like fundamentals as a team.
Yeah. So that's our predictions for NA VCT. It's gonna be spicy, dude. It's gonna be spicy, and I think this week is gonna be so important for who actually winds up where in the when it comes to playoffs. So that's so interesting. Let's talk about EMEA. Let's hop on over across the pond, talk about VCT EMEA. They had some spicy matchups as well. OGLU beat G2 2-1. The hell?
What?
That team was not supposed to do anything.
Man, I need another day in the week, dude. I need another day between Sunday and Wednesday. I don't have time to catch up on all my VODs, man.
Just don't sleep.
I haven't caught up on EMEA this week, dude. I gotta look at this match. Hold on.
Sleep.
So map 1, Ascent. London win 13-9.
They're all close.
G2 running the fade on the fade KO on Ascent. Okay, weird.
And Cypher.
Breeze was pretty close. Fracture was pretty close.
No KO. They were running. Oh wait, no, I'm looking at the wrong one. Never mind. They are running KO. I'm looking at Cypher on the OG side.
Weird.
I'm dumb.
Oh, interesting. Actually, fade being run on both. I wonder if that's an EMEA thing. Just fade on Ascent. I could see it working. Either way, though.
Spicy.
Very strange series.
Spicy. Shit's thrown into chaos in a big way. Guild beat Liquid.
The rest of the results make a little bit more sense.
Liquid feels weird. Fnatic looks so good with their new additions, dude.
Fnatic looks so good, dude.
Fnatic look like they're a contender to not just make the next Masters, win the next Masters. That's what Fnatic is building themselves up for.
As long as they don't, as long as they have like their actual full 5-player roster.
But they should now.
Right?
They should now. There's no more people who should have visa issues.
They should.
So that shouldn't be an issue. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, they'll actually be able to show up with all 5. Because
hopefully no one will get COVID.
Just need to make sure they get Alphager a good visa early. He's the only one who could run into issues. Although no, not even. He should be fine.
Yeah, he should be okay. Turkey, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he should be fine. Okay. That's not a problem for Europe. It's not a problem at all. That should be okay.
No. He'll be good. FPX had a really good win too. It looks like pretty dominant series from them. Although the first map was kind of close, second one was not though. So
yeah.
Still a pretty dominant series overall. And then the rest of the results just kind of make sense to me. I think Guild is looking like somewhat good, so it's not like terribly surprising that they beat. I mean, Guild is actually 3-0 in this group, right? They beat Mech, they beat Big, and now they've beaten TL.
Obviously, Liquid's in somewhat of disarray, right?
At least somewhat.
Whatever the hell's going on with coaching.
It feels like Liquid's been treading water since like stage 1. Like the beginning of stage 1 this year.
Reminder, they did not actually qualify to the first Masters. They got it because FPX couldn't go.
Yeah.
So
Liquid definitely feel like they're treading water right now. But still doing pretty well in the group overall. So like not the worst thing in the world for them.
Yeah, I mean it'd be cool if they could make playoffs. They should make playoffs, but we'll see. Let's look at this week's games. Just give our quick predictions. We're unfortunately going to have to accelerate a little bit because I can't stick around for our usual half hour of an extra time. Give me your gut check. Ascend G2.
Yeah, I mean, these all seem really straightforward, right? G2, FPX, Fnatic. I'm still going to go with Liquid there, although Navi is potential. Mech, Guild.
Okay, I'm going to go G2, FPX, Fnatic. That's boring. Navi.
You stuttered on that FPX pick, man. You gave me a scare.
I mean, I was just excited that they beat G2, but I can't let myself get too hyped. Navi, Mech. Yeah, probably Guild. It's probably pretty boring. But
it feels like a straightforward week for EMEA.
Ace of Rainbows is feeling the Ascend over G2. That one should be the matchup of the week, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, with G2 faltering a little, yeah.
That should be the matchup of the week. But I mean, like, it's G2. Faltering a little is kind of their status quo.
True.
So we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen there. Let's do our Nerd Street Champs update of the week. We got results from the online numero 8. That's going to be NYFU, the New York Fuck You, or the New York Fury, as they're supposed to be known, who take the dub here. See, me saying that means that if they want to use this as a standalone segment, they're going to have to bleep that out. Sorry, editors. But I do love that team name still. So they take the dub there. Let's check out the leaderboard. Let's see if that puts them in position to do any. Oh, it does. 5,000 points for NYFU, catapulting themselves up. Oxygen Academy with the 11,000 mad points. I don't think Oxygen Academy is getting touched anytime soon on that leaderboard.
No, they can chill for a while.
They can chill. Let's take a look at the upcoming tournaments. Who's coming on up here? What we got going next is Georgetown. Georgetown, that's not this weekend, but it's next weekend, I believe. Yes, I know my calendar. So Georgetown in Texas, because there are a lot of Georgetowns in various places. If you're in the area or if you're not, go to it. We love a LAN. We love a LAN. So check them out. Make it happen. Let's play some Val. Play some Val in person. So that's your Summer Champs, your Nerd Street Summer Champs update of the week. And I think that's going to take us to the end here. Paul, you got anything, any last messages to the folks before we wrap things up?
We're getting close to the end of stage 2. Masters feels like it's just around the corner, man. It's going to be a good time.
It is indeed. Can't wait for Masters to be kicking off. We're going to be doing all of that stuff soon as it happens. Can't wait to see who's actually going to make playoffs here in Challenger, man. It's NA Challenger is so wide open. It's so very exciting. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Press 4 to Defuse. That's going to wrap up our show for this week. We go live every week at 1 p.m. Eastern for all that Valorant esports news and discussion. We'll see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.